Okay, welcome to 14th Tea Time Chat and Happy New Year. We have a very special guest today. Tea Time Chat speaker, Professor Alan Lew. I know everybody knows Alan Lew, but hello, Alan.
Everybody knows me. I don't know about that.
Alan Lew is a just retired professor from Northern Arizona University, and he's also visiting professor at Hiroshima University, Japan. And as everybody knows, he's a founding editor-in-chief of Tourism Geography's journal that everybody reads. And Alan Lew is interestingly currently yoga and Gong teacher. Can I say that?
Yeah, I don't actually teach yoga. I'm certified to teach, but I don't actually teach. But I do play my gongs at yoga classes.
Oh, yeah. But thanks so much for joining us, Alan.
Oh, my pleasure.
As I mentioned, I was just watching your Gong YouTube, and really helped me get through my stressful Monday. And thank you so much for that too.
Sure. And actually, you know what I want to do?
Yeah.
I showed you my new gong before. This is my new gong, everyone, that I got for Christmas. This is just to start us off. We'll do a.
Ooh. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you, Alan. That makes us being in a very spiritual mood right now.
Put us in the right frame of mind.
Sounds like a musical instrument. Actually, it could be, right?
Oh, yeah, it is. Sure.
Alan, I kept meaning to actually invite you to Tea Time Chat for a long time enough that I've noticed you're an academic. I know you're still an academic, but you kind of transformed, if I could use the word, to certified yoga teacher and Gong teacher. And I found it really, really interesting. And I'm sure so many people find it interesting too. Can you share with us about your spiritual journey and how that happened and what has it done to you?
Well, not to make it too long, I basically, when I was about 18, 19 years old, that's when I started doing meditation. I learned transcendental meditation when I was a freshman in college. And like for the first 8, 9 years or so, I was very regular in terms of my meditation. I was really, really into it. In addition to all the other things that freshmen and sophomores do in college, which didn't get me very good grades, but the meditation was really good. But then, I got into graduate school. I got married, had a kid, and I just continued to meditate, but not on a really regular basis. I was focused on my career, basically. But at the same time, I credit, all of my accomplishments and things, I credit it to my meditation practice, because the meditation just enabled me to really focus on my work, and it brought all kinds of amazing synchronicities, things that would just show up in my life. And I credit all of that to the meditation. About 10 years ago or so, I started getting high blood pressure for some reason. And so I thought, well, maybe I should go back to meditating on a regular basis. And so I did. I started meditating twice a day, every day, to try to deal with this high blood pressure. It never worked. I still have high blood pressure. so I don't know. But because of that, I got into I really got into more of the spiritual stuff. And I started getting into this whole idea of travel and tourism as a way of expanding global consciousness, of originally, I think it was 2015, the International Geographical Union, it was the year of global awareness or global understanding. And so that was the initial start. But then I took, and so we did a session in Beijing on tourism and global understanding, and I did a presentation there. But then I took that and expanded it to not just global understanding, but in terms of consciousness, in terms of how we are conscious beings and how travel and tourism can actually contribute to expanding consciousness, to a spiritual awakening and things like that, kind of some topics kind of related to well-being, I guess, and mindfulness. So I started getting into that, and I got more and more into that. And actually, I got less and less interested in doing academic work over that time period. And I retired in 2019, just before the pandemic. And by that time, I was already taking a yoga teacher training class, and I had already set up my, I was just getting into gongs. I heard at the yoga studio somebody was playing gongs once, and I just said, I have to have one. And so a few months before I retired, I got my first gong, and now I've got a room full of them. But then I got really into that, and meditation, doing different kinds of meditation as well. And then the pandemic hit, and in some ways for me, it was like it's been like a meditation retreat. In fact, I hear a lot of spiritual type people say that, that they're actually, and it may have to do something with my age too, since I'm retired. I've traveled all over the world. I don't really have a need to go anywhere else. I'm perfectly happy just staying at home and meditating. But then I started getting into writing about meditation and consciousness and spiritual topics, New Age spiritual topics. And in part because I was listening to these things on YouTube, people talking about these different topics, and I'm drawn to certain types of topics. In fact, when I was 19 years old, I read a book called Seth Speaks. It's written by Jane Roberts. She channeled this higher dimensional being named Seth. And that book to me was the most important book I ever read in that time period. To me, it affected my entire life, reading that book. And Seth and Jane Roberts, there are over 30 books now that she channeled from the mid-1960s to 1984 when she passed away. So I was really kind of into this channeling stuff, and I was listening to a lot of that. And I was trying to figure out what these people were talking about, and I started collecting notes, and then I wrote an article, and I got involved with medium.com. And so I write now on medium.com. And one of the earlier articles that I wrote was one on what are the spiritual dimensions of reality, because these people would often, these channeled beings and others, would often talk about dimensions. We're in the third dimension. Earth is a third dimension planet. But then there's the fourth dimension, the fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and on, different dimensions. And angels are like in the sixth, seventh, archangels are in the eighth dimension, things like that. They would say things like that. And so I was taking all these notes what different people were saying, just trying to figure out what was going on. And so I wrote an article. And that article to date has had about 200,000 views. Really? Almost, just under 200,000. I think I'll hit 200,000 here in the next month. I'm always updating it, but it's definitely my most popular thing I've ever written. Oh, really? And I get a lot of comments on it. It's on that article.
I really like the free will one.
Which one?
Free will.
Free will. Oh, yeah. Free will. I wrote one. Free will, that assuming we do have an infinite universe, which we can't prove that Science cannot prove that the universe is infinite, and nobody else can either. But they can't prove it's not infinite either. Infinity is something that's they don't have mathematics to deal with infinity properly, and physics can't figure it out either if the universe is infinite or not. So I just take the assumption that yes, the universe is infinite, and if it is infinite, that means we have to have free will, because anything that's short of free will is a boundary. You're putting a boundary on the universe, and if the universe is infinite, that means there are no boundaries. And so whether there or not there's free will is a huge debate in New Age spiritualism and in philosophy and even in the sciences, whether or not free will exists. A lot of people say it doesn't exist, but I'm on the side that says it does exist. And the reason it exists is because of infinity. If there wasn't infinity, then if there was a boundary, then yes, I would agree that there is a limit, and there probably is not free will. But because the universe is infinite, and it's, according to science, it's constantly expanding. That expansion means it's always creating something new. And the only way you can create something new is if you have free will to create something unexpected and something that's not planned. So anyway, that's my take on it, but I understand that there are people who think the opposite of me. That there's, that there is no free will and the universe is not infinite and such. But to me, it's much more fun to think of the universe as infinite. and that we do have free will.
Definitely, yeah. I like to think that way as well. And Alan, but I know it's not really transformation. I'm very careful using this word, but this kind of a spiritual transformation has benefited your well-being, your personal well-being.
Oh, my well-being?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, you mentioned the blood pressure, but
I mean, yeah, the last 2 years in my department, I was the department chair for the second time, because the previous chair stepped down and there was nobody that was right then and there able to do it. And I was getting ready to retire. I wanted to do a phase out, work half-time for 3 years and then retire. That's what was my plan. But then they came to me and said, well, we need somebody, and you're the only one who has the time and ability to do this. I'd been chair before, and I said I would never do it again after that first experience. So the last 2 years I was department chair, and well, if anybody knows about academics, department chair is one of the more stressful jobs on the university campus.
I don't dream about it.
Yeah. So anyway, but at the same time, I was, gearing up with all my spiritual interests as well. So that, I think that helped. Yeah, I mean, definitely I'm not nearly as stressed as I used to be. And, being able to write the way I write now, I'm writing because I just have this passion to write. It's just so much fun. And sometimes I would experience that before I retired, but not always. Other times I have to write because there's a deadline, and that's the main reason for writing. That wasn't the fun way of writing. The fun way of writing when I was an academic was to get into that mode. And I don't know, maybe you may have experienced this where things just kind of flow. You're in a flow state and you're right. To me, that was one of the best parts of being an academic, was being able to get into that space. It didn't happen all the time, but that was my goal when I would sit down and write, was to get into that space of flow, that experience of flow. And because that made it fun and made the writing fun.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned that you did more meditation and yoga and you did less academic work, but then you achieved so much and you became this Professor Alan Lew, and actually you became maybe more productive because of the kind of less stressful state.
Right. Well, yeah. So, and so that's something that I attribute to my meditation practice.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I was not meditating twice a day, every day, for maybe 30 years or so, when I was really focused on my career, I was meditating several times a week. And actually, when I traveled, I meditated more because I was away from the kids and home. So I actually had a little bit more time to meditate. And to me, I think that's maybe why I was as productive as I was. And I did like to write. I loved writing, but like I said, sometimes it was a lot more fun than other times. I always did enjoy writing, even if it was more academic stuff compared to what I'm writing now. But yeah, I think I think it is definitely related for me. I can't say if somebody meditates, they're going to be more productive. I think they would be. It makes sense to me because your mind is more calm and less scattered. And especially, I think, if you can get your mind into that flow type state when you're writing, that's the most productive way to do it. But yeah, that's what I think. In my department, I used to always tell people, don't compare yourself to me. I love doing this stuff. What I do, I loved my job. I loved writing. I loved getting, doing all the research type things. And not everybody, other people are more into teaching. I was less into teaching. I was more into the other aspects. And but yeah, I think it's related. But definitely, retirement, it's hard. You can't beat retirement. for me at least. I'm as active now as I was before I retired, but I'm doing things. I don't have a boss anymore.
Right.
I'm not doing it because I'm going to get ranked by the university or by some other place on my productivity. I'm doing it just because I have this passion to do what I do, and I think it's helping. It's helping people, because 200,000 views on that one article. Yeah. Next article down that's second in popularity is about the question, has the Earth moved? How or when will the Earth move from being a third dimension planet to a fourth or fifth dimensional planet? And that's got about 70,000 views so far. Because these are big questions that people are asking, especially now with the pandemic. I know there's a lot of people who are having a lot of problems with the pandemic, being locked down and not being able to travel and get out as much as they used to. Like people like me see advantage in that. They see that and they go, well, okay, there's lots I can do. I don't have to go anywhere, and I can really benefit from this. But there's a lot of people who I know that's been a huge problem. Mental health issues are skyrocketing these days. Depression and other problems because people are having a hard time with that. On the other hand, those kinds of issues are driving people more into looking at spiritual solutions to things. One of the things I do to kind of promote my articles a little bit is I joined several New Age spirituality groups on Facebook. And I'm amazed at and fast these groups were growing over the pandemic. There's like one with 400,000 people in it now. And when I joined, it was maybe already 100,000, but they're just, people are really looking for alternative solutions, alternative ways of viewing their life and viewing the world. And so it seems to me that what I write, people really appreciate what I write. One of the things that's different from my writing from a lot of the spiritual writings is I am a social scientist, and I take that into my spiritual writings. And so when I write about fourth and fifth dimensions and things like that, I'm looking at a lot of different perspectives, and I'm trying to synthesize different things that different people are saying, mostly because I want to understand what's going on. Whereas a lot of the New Age spiritual writings that you come across, it's one perspective, it's one person's view. And sometimes, most of them make it sound like that is the only view, the only correct way. Others are much more flexible. They try to make it clear it's their view on things. But I try to take in, I say, well, some person says this, or this other person says this, and so, trying to give some kind of a context for all the different things that people are saying and hearing out there. And I've heard that that's one of the things people like about my writing, is because I don't have that strict way of viewing everything.
That's why I like to read your articles too. But Alan, did you want to talk about the planetary well-being that we're learning from pandemic time, besides our personal and spiritual well-being?
What's the impact of the pandemic on the world, basically?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
So one of the things that kind of bugs me on these Facebook is there is a tendency to try to blame somebody for everything that's going on. You blame the government, you're blaming aliens, you're blaming somebody. And to me, that doesn't make a whole lot of well, I guess you can do that, and it can satisfy some aspects of your mind, but to me, the better approach is to try to understand how this is changing the world. My perspective is the world that we see is basically a reflection of ourselves. Everything that you see that's good in the world is a reflection of yourself, and anything you see that you think is bad in the world is a reflection of yourself. So if you want to change the world, you really need to work on yourself. And that's one perspective. Another perspective is that the world, that the COVID-19 pandemic is here for a reason. Another one of my fundamental beliefs is that everything happens for a reason. There is nothing that happens without a reason. Everything that you encounter in life has a reason for being there. And so what is the reason for the pandemic? I think a lot of people say, well, that it came about just because we had reached a point of exploitation of our natural environment, and the natural environment basically bit back at us. Bit back at us. Other people see it more as that it's a way that the planet, in order to progress and to move forward, this is a way that the planet does that. There's I heard somebody recently talking about how every virus that has been that exists throughout the history of humankind, viruses and bacteria, are basically instruments of evolution. They're ways that they are things that are in the environment that forces us to change and to evolve. And so the coronavirus is something that's forcing us to change and to evolve. And I think there's no doubt that that the virus has really changed the world and is continuing to change the world. I don't think, we will never go back to how things were prior to the virus, to this coronavirus, in part because it may never go away. And even if it does go away, something else is very likely to come up in its place. So it's more a matter of trying to learn what is the new conditions? What is the world? What what world are we being presented with at this time, and how then can we deal with that? It's a world, where travel is hugely restricted in many ways, and of course that has a big impact on travel and tourism. And so, what does that mean? Maybe we were traveling too much.
Yeah.
And maybe we need to think about how travel and tourism should be different. And a lot of people are doing that. But I think at the same time, there's a lot of people who are trying to return to the way things were. The cruise industry, for example, seems to be one of the best examples, and they keep getting knocked down as well every time they try to go back to the way things were. So I think that's a huge thing for travel and tourism, is trying to figure out what is the role of travel and tourism. And I like to think the role of travel and tourism is to expand our global consciousness. What that means is, how do we get to what many think is the next stage of human evolution, is to go beyond things like borders and countries. Right now, most people identify, if you ask them, what do you identify the most with, they mostly identify with their home country. Some people don't even identify with their home country. They identify more with a region like Catalonia or someplace. There has been a growing trend of people to think more regionally, like they're Asians or North Americans, or more globally, that they're citizen of the world first and then a citizen of their country. However, we still have a long ways to go to get past that particular barrier of seeing everybody as different countries, rather than, or nationals of different countries, rather than everybody as humans. And so I think to me, that's what global consciousness is having that kind of a consciousness, awareness that we are a single planet, and we're all connected on this planet, and we all share the same goals for the planet, and that these borders that we put up, these artificial nationalities and other borders of race and ethnicity and religion and things, all of these boundaries that we put around ourselves that are not benefiting humanity as a whole. And so to me, that's what I was trying to get at when I was writing about global consciousness, how travel and tourism expands global consciousness. Now, obviously, there are people who travel and they just go there to have a party and they could care less where they are. There's those kinds of travelers. But at the same time, even if they're doing that, they are being exposed to the world. And so by being exposed to the world, to me, that helps integrate us more into the world. As I see it, we have global problems today: climate change, biodiversity, and now the pandemic. These are problems that cross every boundary. These problems don't know national borders. They don't recognize national borders. And the only way we can deal with that is to have a global awareness, of global consciousness, to deal with these global problems. That was my main argument in those articles that I wrote about that particular topic. But and so that's what I think the pandemic is doing, is pushing us to that. Now, it may be hard to see, especially when you see, these conflicts, with Russia and and the Ukraine, for example, or and other places around the world. It may be really hard to see. I mean, I look at the news. I don't watch the television news, but I do read it on my phone. And there was I think January 1st was one of the most depressing days I could have had. Every news item I saw was just so depressing, but yeah, those things are going to happen. And however, I think it is helping us to move in that direction. I mean, for the next 100 years, you will be able to go anywhere in the world and be able to talk about your experience in the pandemic with somebody else who had an experience in the pandemic, because everybody in the world is sharing this in their own personal experience. So it's a step in that direction. It's not going to happen overnight. From what I see people writing about this stuff, 2020, everybody said that was a big year. Recording. So last thing I was trying to say was when we might actually see more obvious changes. And 2020 was a big year. A lot of people are saying the mid 2030s, 2034, 2035, around then is another year, but other people are saying it's not going to, we won't really see a huge change for another 50 years. So when and where we will really notice a huge shift is hard to say. But I think we are moving in the right direction. I like to be positive about that.
I cannot agree more with you on this. And at least we are having more conversations about this, more writings and more media. So there's more just attention on this issue. So that's we're already going to the right direction, I guess.
Yeah, I would agree. And the internet has been huge. I think the internet has been a really big part of this because it's exposing people to a lot of new ideas that would have been really hard to access, just 20 years ago even. And people are able to share their experiences more about, having spiritual awakening type experiences and experiences with extraterrestrials and other things like that.
That's true. And if there was no pandemic, I wouldn't have a conversation with you about this anyway. I wouldn't think about planetary well-being or global consciousness, to be honest. So yeah, definitely, I'm sure.
Yeah, so things are changing, and it's going to be real interesting. I feel really good about 2022. I think it's going to be a good year for all of this stuff.
Really? That sounds really hopeful for the January, for the starting of the new year.
Yeah. So my take on it is 2020 was the year of upheaval, was when everything got turned upside down. 2021 was the year of coming to terms with that. And some people say we're still trying to figure that out, but kind of accepting that this is what has happened and this is what the new world is that we have is presented to us. And that 2022, this year, is going to be the year of healing, global healing. That's my.
Yeah. And I agree with your article and what you said earlier. Really, one of the biggest lesson we learned from pandemic is the realization of we're all connected, not across borders, and not only human beings but also humans as well. And I think that's really one of the biggest lessons we've learned, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. And that's a big lesson. I mean, it's been happening, globalization's been happening since the Industrial Revolution. Even actually, probably maybe you could even say the European colonial empires period was globalization. But but in some ways globalization was leading to more conflict and separation at the same time. And this pandemic is kind of there is separation going on because we can't go anywhere, but it's also integrating us in ways that has never been done before, at least.
That's true. Alan, and do you want to add anything to this? This has been really interesting.
Well, I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, I can keep talking about this actually, including my personal experience.
Yeah.
But,
no, I think that kind of sums up. I mean, if people are really interested in in more of this stuff. You know, I've got like almost 150 articles I've written now.
Oh
Well,
God.
some of them, there's some poems and there's some guided meditations, and there, you know, there's a variety of things. But things on Medium, which unfortunately is not accessible in China, and Medium is probably blocked in some other countries as well, which is really unfortunate. But yeah. But anyway.
But I really wanted to say, I know we look up to lots of professors and, you know, senior academics for their academic works and scholarly work. And we often think, junior academics, who I want to become, right? But you're really the one person I want to become when I grow up. Because you're not just, you know, achieved academics, but you also really care about, you know, junior academics who are marginalized, I feel like. And you also have become this spiritual person, and you created kind of new career after retirement with this spiritual, you know, practices. So that has been really, really inspiring to me. And I wanted to really say that to you.
So well, thank you. I appreciate that. But I don't take all the credit. I have my higher spiritual guides with me all the time. And I'd like to give them some of the credit for a lot of that as well.
I think that's what I want to take on actually as a junior academic. It's not all about, you know, meeting the measurement indicators and competing, but just there's a bigger things and bigger world out there, and it's not just me achieving. So
yeah, you know, and one of the things that I've benefited from is that I'm not at a major research university. You know, my university, you know, if I do research, fine. You know, I get a few more points for that. It's actually more of a teaching university. And for a while, I was thinking, well, maybe I should move on to something bigger than that. But to me, in the end, that was the best thing ever, because it allowed me to freedom that I know a lot of academics don't have, because they're under so much pressure to publish. You know, I didn't have that pressure. I still publish because I just, you know, really like writing. And so, I mean, that's something to think about. You know, what, so it's, I have a heart. So when I meet younger academics like yourself, and I've heard what you just said, I've heard many times, many times over my career. You know, and I kind of feel, you know, if you can somehow relieve that pressure and do it, everything you're doing because you love to do it, because it's fun to do, you know. And for me, I think that was a big part of my success, is because that's how I felt about it, in addition to meditating.
Thank you. That's the final lesson for all of us. And also, I think pandemic also has taught us that it's, you know, right?
Oh yeah, that's why everybody's quitting their jobs, right?
I know. I did actually last year, so I'm one of them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You did.
So it's very interesting. But thank you so much, Alan, for your time, especially all this inspiring talk for the beginning of a new year. So I'm sure it's really enlightening and inspiring for everyone. Good. Thank you so much, Alan. I hope to see you. Oh yeah, you want to say hello?
Oh, sure. Oh, hi, Sunny.
Oh, hi, Sunny. How are you?
Nice to see you. You're muted. You're muted.
Okay, so can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, happy to see you here.
Yeah, I'm glad you could join us.
So because it's in the midnight in China, so I didn't open the video right now. So I think you are very enjoying your retirement life now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I can see your looks full of energy. Yeah. And looks healthy. Then because I'm the business girl of Alan Lew, so I'm sorry how to
Yeah,
gel.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, okay. So thanks.
Okay, well, good to
Thank
see
you so much for joining, Sunny. Thanks, Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New
You
Year.
too.
Bye-bye.
You too.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Okay. So